Olivia invited me, but I don't really know what that means.
It's okay.
Yeah.
No, we started a new podcast partnership with them.
Excellent.
So we're part of the podcast side.
Congratulations.
Yeah. So we're very excited to start this partnership. And we thought we're ready to start it and have an event. So we're going to try to live stream if we can get it to work.
Yeah, figuring it out.
What is the event? I know absolutely nothing.
So
We're the radio show Beyond the Headlines. We also produce a podcast as well. That's on CUIT 89.5. And then Young Diplomats. I don't know that much about Young Diplomats actually, so you probably know more.
you're probably in that.
No.
You're just like,
Yeah, I'm just a friend. Yeah. Are you looking it up?
Yeah, I'm looking it up.
No worries. See, we're all in this together. This is good.
So we're trying to get
trying to get the live feed going. They should know more about the Young Diplomats side of it. I think they have like conferences. But yeah, we're just like the radio side. So check the podcast.
And what does Beyond the Headlines do? Is it sort of like a deeper dive into what's actually going on? Or?
Yeah, it's more of a policy perspective. So we produce like radio shows, and they're usually like hour-long radio shows that go up on Mondays, and they cover different policy topics. And we also started doing a podcast called The Weekly this year. So we covered like more shorter episodes and stuff like that, more like less serious stuff. We did like carbon tax and cannabis legalization.
Is it all Canada focused, or is it global, or is it?
It's mostly Canada.
Mostly Canada for the public so far, but hopefully with launch.
Branch out.
Hey, Nuri, I'm going to send you something.
Me?
Yeah, the link of this. Tell me if it works. Okay. Let me find your number. All right, tell me about this. It should work. Oh my God, I can see my face. Okay, it works.
Yeah.
Can I just put this in for 1 second?
Oh, sorry.
You don't have it. Shit. Does someone have it in that?
No, mine's the.
I need to hear it. I need to hear it to know.
It's playing.
Do you mind, like, an iPhone?
No, I don't care. Oh, we're pretty sure we're live. I just want to double check that it's coming through the mic.
Sick. That's so fun. Do you guys want to drink on me?
Oh my God. Wow.
I'm okay. I'm not driving. I drove here, so I'm good. Yeah.
Okay, maybe a little bit. I just want to make sure that this works.
Fair enough. Mom, just let me know.
Okay, great.
John is almost
Oh, sorry. Sorry, my ears are clean. Hello. Yeah, it works. That's okay. So it works. Oh, okay, that's good. Okay, great. So I'm gonna send you guys the links.
I'll post it.
And post it everywhere.
Yeah.
Okay.
How do you post it?
I'll post
No,
it.
you just copy the link and post it anywhere.
Yeah.
Okay, great.
I don't have Twitter though. I don't have like Robert. You handles Twitter. So if you want to upload it to Twitter, I'll do it to Facebook and Instagram.
Cool. So what I really want is to stop this video. I don't know how.
And stream.
No, like I just want it to be the thumbnail.
Oh, okay.
I don't know how to make it so it's just there has to be a way.
Do you want to send me that link that you sent me? And that way I can add it to the Instagram and
And sent it in the group.
There has to be a way.
This looks cool.
Gotta figure out how to log into.
Oh, I have to download this shit. Whatever.
Are you waving to yourself?
I don't know what to talk about.
Oh.
Dude, get here.
Is it concert?
No, he's in a concrete. I don't know what that is. Okay. Okay, so how should we do it?
I'm posting onto Facebook right now. Sorry.
Is there a power bar? I can plug in both my computer and that.
What should I say? Like, come join our. Oh, here, I got it. Yeah, I know.
Taking it away from Robert to do Twitter.
Okay.
I sent Ydc. What you drink? Oh, sure.
Sure. Okay, All right. Tom and everyone listening, we are at the official YDC Bth launch, and we will be live streaming the whole night and hopefully putting forward some nice topics for everyone to be listening to, whoever's listening out there.
If you're in Toronto, please come and join us. We're at Milk Glass.
Yeah, please come join the conversation if you like. And we have a lot of interesting international people here from working on files, from consulting and advising with the Rwandan government and with Grand Challenges Canada. So we have quite a long list of individuals here. You can't really see them too much, but it should be an interesting night, and hopefully we can get them on the mic as well. So stay tuned, and thank you. do it again. Well, thank you so much for coming tonight.
It's not a problem. It's a pleasure to be here.
How'd you find out about it?
I am friends with a few of your YDC co-organizers, and I've been to several of their events before. They're always innovating new topics, and honestly, they get more and more creative. Last one was Twitplomacy on Twitter diplomacy.
Wow.
And next up, we have a podcast.
Wow.
So-
That's amazing. Twitter diplomacy is something that you
Yeah.
never really think about.
I've never thought of my tweeting as diplomatic,
Yeah.
especially when I'm at real Donald Trump. But apparently it happens.
Yeah. Well, that's great. Yeah. YDC has been such an innovator in this space, especially in international development
Yeah.
space, right? So it's a real honor for us to be working with them in any capacity, podcast or otherwise. So when and what you want to talk about yourself, just describe yourself a little bit, where you work.
Sure. My name is Nasser. I was a graduate of U of T in political science, and I now am a research analyst at the NATO Association of Canada and do part-time work for the Canada Arab and Canada Turkey Business Councils,
Very cool.
deepening trade ties, trade representation, promotion, and a lot of events and conferences.
Yeah, you must. And did you find that your time at U of T prepared you fairly well for the job now?
I would like to say I would like to think it did. I can't pinpoint an exact way it did, other than the prestigious degree that comes along with it. But it definitely expanded my networking circle and exposed me to a lot of groups that I met through U of T, and then it just built from there and there.
No, that's great. Yeah, I think that's something that the partnership between YDC and BTH is so great. Is that it gives students the opportunity to network in channels that they wouldn't have had the opportunity to do so otherwise. Right?
Yeah, I've been here about 10, 15 minutes, and I've met several very impressive people.
Wow.
And I feel like I have a lot of work ahead of me.
Yeah, me too. And I got to work on my tweets too.
Yes,
Yeah. Definitely. Okay, do you want to talk about a little bit more, maybe this sort of analyst portion of your work?
Sure.
Because that's like a crossover between public policy and a lot of economic analyst work. I find like that's kind of an interchangeable.
Definitely. Well, over the summer, I was actually a program editor at first with the NATO Association of Canada, and I was mostly tasked with the Emerging Security Program. That's focused on any of our up-and-coming security threats, such as environmental security, cybersecurity, trade security, and the list goes on and on, non-state actors, and et cetera. So I wrote a report that I was focused on for a very long period throughout the summer on trade security as a national security threat.
Wow.
And that was based off of actually Donald Trump's quotes and rhetoric about how America first, and as long as no one's threatening their status in the world, then they'll never think of it as a national security threat. But as long as they do, aka China, it's always a national security threat. And then soon after that, and being involved with a lot of the trade representation groups and going, like I said, to a bunch of these events and conferences as a way to study and take notes on my report, I networked with a lot of people who help promote and deepen trade ties to avoid trade and standards of lives being used as a national security threat excuse, kind of.
Yeah.
So it's opened a lot of doors, and in a way, policy and theory has actually led to real and tangible work. Where the Canada Turkey Business Council is hosting a conference in December, actually. And we're expecting the Turkish trade minister himself to come over and sign a lot of bilateral agreements with Canada, which is a huge stepping stone for the Turkish-Canadian relationship.
Definitely.
Yeah.
And I was recently at a conference similar to the ones you probably go to, with a lot of academics from Mexico, America, and Canada talking about the new NAFTA deal, the USMCA. And it was interesting to hear how much China played into the discussion, and how a lot of Canadians were under the impression that that it would be beneficial to continue the diversification of our trade portfolio, right?
So
You can sort of see it with Trudeau's minister being trade and diversification. Right?
I would say Trudeau has found himself in a very unfortunate situation,
Yeah.
a bit of a catch-22 that no matter which direction he goes to, he is still exposed to some sort of leverage by one actor or the other. In this case, the U.S. or China, with Donald Trump's belligerence in matters of trade and NAFTA, and in the run-up to the negotiation of the New Deal, Trudeau and Canada as a whole actually realized that their dependence on the USA has been a existential crisis of sort. If they just stop trading, Canada's economy tanks. So they need to diversify, and they've been looking at South America, Europe, the TPP, and
definitely.
very importantly, China.
Yeah.
But at the same time, deepening trade and trade relationships with China leaves it exposed to some of the security threats we've been hearing about with Huawei and their ZTE technology.
Definitely.
So I think they are going to try to balance both out, keeping the door open for China with limited deepening while showing the U.S. that they can do otherwise. But there's not much wiggle room for Trudeau and his team there.
Yeah, definitely. I think you're right. I think it's a very interesting situation to be in. Yeah, it's hard, especially when the free trade agreements that are out there are very focused on older things, like maybe 20th century protection of goods, as opposed to trying to modernize, right? So
plus the evolvement of what a trade deal implies or includes between digital companies and taxation to technological know-how and, very importantly now, AI.
Definitely.
Someday someone, actually not someone, a program will be sitting here telling you exactly what I am doing.
Me too.
And they'll probably do it a lot better than I am right now. I'm sorry for all you listeners.
Well, thank you so much for coming.
It's not a problem. Thank you for having me, and it's been a pleasure.
Great.
Awesome.
So we're gonna take the audio from this and then see if we can put it to some type of show or something.
Cool. So Jackson is one of the official programs. So maybe talk about.
Sure.
I'll come back after. I'll do one at the end.
Got it.
Here, you sit in this.
Sure.
People know who I am. It's
Sounds
more
good.
important to know.
Sounds good. Dude, this is cool. Thanks a lot. Thank you.
Well, nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you, Dimitri.
Nice to meet you, Jackson.
It's been a lot of fun.
Yeah, it's been great tonight. It's been a real honor to be with YDC and sort of expand both of our horizons in terms of policy work and what type of things we're going to be able to explore now, both of our organizations.
Yeah.
So, you think you want to take a moment just to introduce who you are and what you've been involved with YDC?
Yeah, of course. My name's Jackson Kahn. And actually, a few years ago, I helped co-found YDC. At the time, we were trying to figure out how can we get more young people engaged in global politics from a Canadian perspective and do more to represent our country and influence the world, because we think the Canadian model is a good one. We think we have a lot to offer as a country. So much of our country is based in diversity and pluralism, respect for the environment, belief in really collaborative business, all of those different things. So
Definitely.
I think we've often been a playmaker on the international stage.
Yeah.
We're a middle power. We're highly respected, and we care. We really, really care a lot. And so Canadian compassion, I think, is one of the things that we wanted to bring a lot more into the world. And when we were just trying to get involved, just us and a few of the young people, was, well, how do we just go to these conferences, these summits, these big summits that are happening with the World Bank, the United Nations, whatever it was?
It seemed like daunting things.
Yeah, it's like, well, these are global leaders. Who are we? Just a bunch of university students. But really, it's, well, they're meeting. They have a point of view. They've got some expertise. And as young people, so do we. We actually have a lot to offer, because now we're in a generation where it's grown faster than ever. And more than 50% of the world's population is under 35.
Yeah.
So that means we have a hugely important perspective. We're a stakeholder in that process, and that we really need to be a voice in it, in the decisions that are being made about not just the future, but really about the present, the next, just right now. And so how do we get young people in there right now? And so that was our goal, and we achieved that actually within a couple of years. We reached out to every single major stakeholder, the World Bank, the United Nations, the G20. And we actually got official delegations sanctioned often with the government or by those organizations or both to get young people in the process.
It's amazing.
And now several years later, we've got funding. We've got an organization that has a relationship with the Prime Minister's office, the Foreign Service. The government cares a lot and is actually trying to fund what we're doing and cares a lot about us. So I think it's good. I think we got young people on the map.
Yeah.
And we've got tweeted by Prime Minister Trudeau. That got seen by millions of people. And he regularly gives us a little shout out. So it's a good call.
No, definitely. I think you did a lot of really strong and hard work at the beginning to get those ties. And it's really cool that you reached your goal that you guys had. That's unbelievable. It's very cool.
Yeah, I feel good about what we've done, and launching this podcast, it's just think it's another step. I mean, it's how do we reach as many young people with this message of inclusion? And say we want your voice on the world stage on behalf of Canada.
Yeah,
definitely we have a competitive application process, but the whole point of this is, well, how do we make it accessible in the first place so that as many people hear about it, and then we want the best. We want people who are going to take what they have, share it with the world on behalf of Canada. And then ideally, when you go out on the world stage, how do you bring that back to your community? You want to affect communities all across Canada, using young people as a vehicle, and ideally giving young people an empowering opportunity that helps them for the rest of their careers.
Yeah, no, definitely. Yeah. I think that's something that's really shown in the work that YDC's already brought forward to us with their debriefs from numerous different delegations that they've been to. And it's shown that the youth perspective has been an important one in almost every single delegation they've been to.
Well, I mean, you look at the most recent G20, G7 summit, they directly took a lot of the clauses that we wrote down and that delegates from across the world agreed upon at a conference that was hosted in Ottawa. They put those clauses in the final official world leader declaration. That came out. That's a real, actual decision and result that came from youth advocacy. And the Canadians were leading that process. Young Diplomats of Canada was leading that process, and I think that's pretty cool.
And you can see how much the Prime Minister Trudeau really believes in it with his own youth office and everything. You guys really do have a great interaction with them.
We're grateful for support from this government, and we hope that regardless of any partisan stripes or any kind of anything voting related, that people simply realize that youth and young people are the most important constituency because they represent both the present and the future, and we've got a lot to say. So,
what
bless me. Yeah, thanks very much.
With your background and all that, what do you think youth's perspective is the most important in terms of policy development in the present?
Right now,
Yeah,
I would say that right now it's actually how do we simply shape the democratic discourse itself. We've seen that young people often don't even vote enough. So there's a civic disengagement that's happening, and I think the most important thing that can happen from a youth perspective is simple inclusion in discussions.
You're right,
because that's actually the bedrock and the foundation that's going to permit everything else to happen.
Yeah.
Youth also have a lot of different views about how education should be different. How should our resource strategy go to market? What does climate change look like? We're already seeing a lot of the impacts there, and so how is that going to affect not just right now, but the future generations, right?
Definitely.
If we want to have a prosperous country, we want to have our own families, we want to be able to afford homes in this country, it's all those different things. It's mass transit, it's housing. There's an infinite number of topics, and it's simply a generational change, right? And so all of those things need to fall in the same bucket of how do we engage youth in the first place.
Yeah, no, you're right. I completely agree with you. I think the democratic process, it needs to be more accessible in terms of youth perspective.
And politicians need to reach out to us
Yeah.
because we matter. And
Yeah.
youth, every young person needs to get involved. Even if that's just on digital and social media, it's you have a voice, show it.
Definitely.
Go out,
Yeah.
sign some petitions, read the news, and
Definitely.
read from a few different sources so that you're getting the clearest, most critical perspective that you can about what's going on.
Yeah, definitely. Well, thank you so much for speaking
Super
with me
welcome.
tonight.
Yeah.
And I can't wait to see where YDC and BTH goes. Great.
Wicked. It's going to be a lot of fun. Thanks a
Thank
lot.
you so much.
Yeah.
So we're going to take this audio and we're going to edit it and put it out because I'm having conversations with a bunch of people tonight. So hopefully we can
Okay, so I start.
Yeah. I'll just say a few words and then you can introduce yourself and your.
First, like briefly me what she talk about. Yeah.
Let's talk about the thing that you work for, the African brand thing. Let's talk about that. Are you comfortable talking about that? Okay, great.
Yeah.
Okay. How do you pronounce your name again?
Enoch.
So we're here at the Ydc Bth Launch. I met Enoch. He's an unbelievable student at University of Toronto, and he has his own organization or entity that he's working on. And I thought it was very interesting, and I'd love for you to talk more about it.
Thank you so much. My name is Enoch. I go to U of T, political science specialist, second year. I do, apart from that, I do a show called African Rebirth. The importance of the main goal of the show is to future uh, what happens on the continent, what challenges goes around the continent, and finding feasible solutions to the problem. And besides that, we want to tell the world that Africa is a potential. It's potential for investment. It's a potential for a lot of work, technology. There's a lot of technological advancement. Africa is a potential because of it's. I think it's the only young continent where with a lot of young people. So there's a lot of energy. There's a lot of skill. So we want to tell this story. I want to tell this story to the world that hey, Africa is no longer the history of colonization. It has changed so much, and we need to open up the world and find possible solutions, to the problem facing Africans, and changing the narrative that Africa should tell its own story. It looks so weird for international media to tell story for Africa. I find it they don't tell it in full. They tell it in short term. And to be honest, most of it tend to be biased. So they don't tell mostly. They usually see animals. You see, they show only gorillas. They show only hungry people. They show only bad things happen. But that's not true. There's a lot of good happening more than the bad. So we need to tell the good news to the world. That's what African Rebirth is all about. Yeah.
That's great. You guys have such an interesting and innovative mandate for your organization.
Yeah.
Where can people find your organization?
Sure. Now I was doing it back home in the summer. I have Facebook page. My Facebook page is called African Rebirth, and what I do, I'm trying to fix it to come up with a show in Canada. It's quite challenging, but I feel I should achieve it. Now, to find a TV show to host what I'm talking about, and keeping engaging and engaging. But besides that, I do talking. I go to, like, at school. I belong to African Student Association, so I talk about mostly to fellow Africans what we should do, and I pass out words. And teaching goes beyond classroom. Even like I just told you what I do. So it's spreading the word. So, but I want to get it more professional now. To uh, school schedule is so tight, but I want to get a TV show to host this TV show. So I've applied to some TV show, presented my proposal. There is a show called a TV called Africa Global Television. So it features the kind of African the story. So yeah, I'm looking to go that, and Ontario TV. So it's so open to that. So I submitted my proposals. So I'm hopeful I'll get one. Yeah.
That's great. I hope you do get it, because it seems like a very interesting program.
Yeah.
Watching it's great.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for sharing with us.
Yeah.
And coming to the event. And, we look forward to maybe working together one day or something. It'd be great.
Yeah. Why I do this is you can't progress if you don't know yourself.
Sure.
So what you tell to yourself reflects in what you do. So we want to tarnish the image that it's only animals you find in Africa, and so we want to reflect an image of winning, an image of importance, an image of an attitude that has the world. So that's why my passion is. A quote from one of the great revolutionaries of Africa said that the best way to live in freedom is to try to live the African way. So what's that African way? Yeah, it's what I want to try. And the African way, we are defined as people, warriors, people who go out, they win and stuff. So that's why I do. Right?
That's great.
Yeah.
That's really good.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Check.
Hi.
Wait. Check.
Check. 1 2 1 2. It's good.
1, 2, 3. Okay, yeah, I think
All
it
right.
works.
Well, good evening. My name is Myra Ween. I'm a second year Masters of Public Policy candidate for the Monk School of Global Affairs and Public Policy.
Hi, I'm Jasper Paredes. I'm a second year at the Monk School of Global Affairs and Public Policy.
That too.
Yes.
What did I say? Public policy and governance? Or did I say global affairs? Who knows? But we deal with it all.
We do.
We're a dynamic duo.
Yes.
Both brought to policy for different reasons.
Yep.
And yeah, so basically, my policy interests are in digital governance, migration and diversity. And basically that's brought about from, I think, my own personal experience with policy, which I think is very important, is to put yourself in the shoes of the policy that you're making for people. So, I'm a woman, I'm a Filipina, I'm Jewish, I'm young. And so what better place to be and to collaborate and to engage on a platform that's fun and interactive.
You know what I really love? I love that your policy interests are so specific. Because they are. Like normally when you ask someone what their policy interests are, they'll say something like, I like social policy or economic policy or environmental policy. And like you technically said that as well, but then you went more in depth and you said like what particular aspect of that sort of policy you're interested in.
Right.
And I think that's great. And it also like it really shows via like obviously the things that you produce. You just wrote an excellent piece in the PPGR earlier this week. A lot of people said great things about it.
Thank you.
And it's been shared a couple of times. And
Thank you.
I hope you continue writing. I think that's amazing.
But you know what, Jasper? People like you inspire me. No, but really, because in policy, it's about keeping it real, keeping it relevant, and we all know, certain policies have a very select window. But yeah, like I said, engage in your own personal intersectionality. Our own personal histories are so important in the work that we do, for the future, and yeah, that's what I bring with me.
Yeah. So going back to the PPGR article that you wrote earlier this week, I was wondering if you could summarize some of the key points and what inspired you to write about it.
Absolutely. So the title of my article is Facing Hate. And so basically Facing Hate Through Policy. And it was really inspired by the horrific events in Pittsburgh. And what really hit home for me, beyond this blatant act of anti-Semitism, was how people were engaging with it online, especially, and people who are typically, in that social policy realm. And I think something that a lot of people forget about is that, Jews are a part of that important intersectionality. They are a huge minority, which is like a weird paradox. But yeah, I mean, most recently was actually Holocaust Education Week. But back to, and there's lots of things to learn from that, but back to the whole piece, I think the main thing is, who do we give a microphone to? I mean, we want to value all voices. But what is that fine line? How do we toe the line between just propagating hate and, freedom of speech? And I think it's scary and dangerous, and especially with the way, digital innovation, the number of platforms that are out there and how things mobilize. I think we need to be aware. This isn't just a U.S. problem. This isn't just a Trump U.S. problem, which I've heard a lot of people say. This isn't it is, gun policy is part of the issue. But first and foremost, xenophobia. And it's happening right here.
Right in our own backyard.
Right in our own backyards. In the city of Toronto, we like to advertise ourselves as this huge multicultural city. But really, Jews have actually experienced an increase in hate crimes in 2017. And you can look at the Toronto Police report on that. And, when we talk about social policy, we talk about micro and macro aggressions. And I think what we fail to realize is, the microaggressions, whether it be vandalism on a synagogue, or it be a person saying, I hate Jews online on Facebook, it does turn into something large. It does snowball. And we need to do a better job. We need to have, I think, more tangible consequences for people who engage in that type of stuff, for people who propagate that stuff, because like I said, we think we're this big multicultural city, but I think we're more divided than ever.
Those are such great points. And once again, thank you for sharing. You made mention of a distinction between micro and macro aggressions. I was wondering if you could talk about where that line is and what your definition of a microaggression is.
Right. I mean, these things are hard to define, right? Because I think also, again, back to the digital context, it has dramatically changed what those things mean. So, I mean, when we think micro, it could be something as like a comment about a stereotype. Like, oh, you don't look Asian.
Oh, or, I got.
It's like, is that your real hair?
I've got that a couple of times. Yeah. And you've gotten that too.
Absolutely.
Especially because like you're half Filipino, half Jewish.
That's right.
And like when people ask you that, how does that make you feel at that point?
I mean, over the years, I've kind of used that to empower myself in a way, kind of be that chameleon. And I use my existence as resistance, as catchy as that sounds,
That's another idea for another PPG article.
That's the thing. It's all about daily fighting daily, those stereotypes and those, misconceptions and a kind of striking thing for me this year. I was actually at a job interview at at a major consulting firm, and
Yes.
and something that a male interviewer said to me. He
Oh.
he held my resume, looked at me, and he said, "You did all this?"
Oh
And
no!
it's like, how do I take that? Do I take that as like, wow, that's incredible?
No!
I want to be looked at as an equal, right?
Yes.
But I think some of the best encouragement I got was during my time this summer with the Ontario Public Service.
Mm-hmm.
And one of my senior management colleagues said to me, something that struck her about me is how comfortable I am in my dual identity. And I think that's so important, being comfortable, being proud to say, yes, I'm this, yes, I'm that. And, knowing what you want, putting it out there.
Yeah.
And being your true self. I think that's really important.
Oh, that's such an inspiring message. I love hearing that. Oh, okay. We have a visitor here. This is Melissa. She's wonderful. We work together at the City Building Leadership Program. We've been assigned to the area of Agent Court. I was wondering if maybe you could talk a little bit about what the program is like and what we're trying to do in that area.
Hi. Well, essentially what we're trying to do is we're trying to engage the citizens of Agent Court with the planning development appeals process. And we're trying to understand, are you interested in planning development appeals? Do you want to be a part of this? Do you know about the changes to the regulations from the OMB to the PMAT? Maybe you don't, maybe you do. But in any case, we want to hear from you and we want to gauge. So if we got any listeners from Agent Court, this is me pulling it out to
Yes.
you. We're going to be conducting consultations or
Yes.
engagements at some point. We got a meeting with the city planner. I don't know if you've been checking the Slack, Jasper.
I had an interview yesterday, so I didn't get to check it out. I saw it directly afterwards, and I'm okay with that date.
All right, so Jasper has not been slacking on the Slack, is what we learned.
I'll come in on the Slack
with Agent Court City Planner, and we're going to be engaging the citizens of Agent Court. So get ready. How do you feel about the Agent Court Mall development? We want to find out. Thank you.
That was so natural. Like even off the air, like that was really good. Oh, do you want to be on a Beyond the Headlines episode at some point this year? Okay. That was really good. And you know what's funny? On Beyond the Headlines, often we type out what we're gonna say, but like you didn't type out anything. Just like. You know what's funny? Obviously you know Baz, right? Yeah, I'm close friends with Baz, and he tells me all the time how cool you are. Yeah. We went to the movies the other week. We watched Crazy Rich Asians. Oh yeah. Yeah, and we also watched the Lady Gaga movie.
Oh yeah.
And like, it was so good, and I've never shed a tear like that. Like ever, like watching movies. And it's so good, like, I want to buy the actual, like, soundtracks. Because, like, honestly, I wasn't sure if this is, like, an autobiography that's not about yourself, or if it's playing a character, but it was so real. And, like, and I did not know she had the voice.
Still one of the best concerts.
Oh my goodness. Yeah.
That is like all the money she makes back into her concert.
Oh, so she doesn't even really like keep it.
She doesn't, at least in her early days, probably like she makes so much money now, but like when she first started out, she took like no profit. Like she invested everything. Yeah.
She probably does seem in real life like the character she plays in the film. And I think that's why I like it so much. Also, I didn't know this, but she was an actor even before this. She was an American Horror Show.
Oh, I knew that. Yeah. She was very good.
So she knows what she's doing.
This is like the fourth remake of the movie.
I did not know that.
Yeah, this is like the screenplays from like the 1950s or something, like
Oh
earlier.
my goodness.
Talking about the stars. Yeah.
Should I sing for this live podcast? What song should I sing?
Yeah. We talked about consultation briefly. She talked about her latest piece in the PPGR, about like fighting hate, promoting diversity.
We're gonna have a TDPP takeover in Puerto Rico next week.
Yeah.
Oh, that's amazing.
That's gonna be good. I got you a business card at the end. Yes, I did. You know I'm networking for you. I went at the freaking GDPP event, and one of the people was like some like water lady, like I don't know, climate water shit. And I was like, oh, I'm gonna give you my business card. And then, well, I took it for you. And she was talking about how her work was funded by the partnership grant. Not the iteration that you worked for, but like the earlier one. She's a great lady. Anyway, there you go.
So sweet.
I just need you to make money.
Yeah, that's how it goes. That's how it goes.
But I need you to upgrade. Anyway.
Well, thank you guys for joining.
Yes.
Yeah, it was great. Also, I was wondering, like, when you mix this,
And like I specifically have to get this one bus so that my dad.
Union or Yorkdale?
I'm going to Union now.
Oh, okay. It's so good to finally meet you.
It's so good to meet you too.
this is Mara. She's me. Just saying.
Is this like recording an episode or what are you gonna say?
Yeah.
Okay. I'm gonna talk about
EPGR, just like I wrote an article that I wrote, so just like and like our interest in policy. You want to talk?
I don't think so.
I'm gonna sing a song.
Is that?
I should sing a song.
You should. Is it? It's so funny. Okay. I'll know that. If I had like 10 more minutes, I would. But yeah, I did PPGR as well. Cause like that was more my thing rather than like being like live. And I'm working more into
It's funny because I've never been so on it. But I mean, though, and all of you back. So that's my problem. I was here.
I think Tom is the only one who's watching. So we're fine.
Tom Pekarski, this is for you.
Okay, hold on. Let me just change this. Okay. Jesus Christ. I can't sit down. Okay. So, I don't know how close we have to hold this.
I have no idea.
I don't know how it sounds.
Yeah.
So what are we talking about here, Alex, today? Well, I was gonna say first, where are we? But I guess they already know.
So we've done some weeklies.
Yes, we have.
We've been on a little bit.
Yep. Have you liked it so far?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's been cool, but maybe not talking about any specific policy in general. What do you feel like? Do you look at like an event like this? Do you look at what we're doing beyond the headlines? What's kind of like what was your inspiration to get involved? What do you feel like you're trying to accomplish with beyond that?
I really wanted to get involved because I thought it was an interesting way to be able to engage in multiple different policy topics. well, like it was a way for me to like get involved in something that where I can just dip my toes into different fields and just different ideas and different policy interests and current policy that's coming out, which I thought was really good with the ones that we did, like the carbon tax one that came out and everything too.
Yeah.
So I think that was my more interesting way of getting into it. And I listen to a lot of podcasts myself, so I kind of wanted to be a part of one to go. How about you? What made you?
That's funny. Like, I actually am not one of those podcast people. Like, I don't listen. I don't listen to any podcasts. Like,
Okay.
It's funny. Like, I actually don't enjoy listening to podcasts that much. No. So it's funny being on the other side of that table now. I think for me, like, the biggest thing is we study policy every day. We read academic articles. We look at it from a very scholarly point of view, and I think the interactions with policy outside of that are what you hear in the news and what you hear from politicians, and it's very biased a lot of the time. There's a lot of sugarcoating. There's a lot of different,
very broad strokes.
Yeah, a lot of political layers that maybe cover up the real issue. So what I think that like we have the benefit of being able to do with the Beyond the Headlines and with something like the Weekly, our podcast, and now with this new podcast with Ydc is take real policy issues and use a bit of that skill set that maybe we have and be able to immerse ourselves in something that we're interested in and kind of talk about that policy and what we're looking at on a general but accessible scale.
Yeah.
Where
well, it's interesting too because we bring in a different perspective where we're just getting into learning kind of the more background things that go into making policy, and I feel like that's. I was talking to someone here at the event where he was working in the energy business. I worked for an energy company, and it was interesting talking to him because I was like, "So, like, what did you think of the carbon tax that with Ontario and the scrap of the cap and trade system as well?" And it's kind of interesting seeing being able to hear what he's saying and really understand where that knowledge is coming from and the actual like economics behind it too. And everything.
Right.
So it's interesting.
Yeah, I think being able to talk about policy when it's not just politicians, when it's not just a tax and defense, it's kind of a breath of fresh air, and it adds a whole new level of interest for me at least.
Like thinking about places from like either research side or even just corporations affected by a certain policy and stuff like that, and getting into thinking about not just partisan politics and not just thinking about what parties are bringing out and putting forward, but more about what the actual issue is and how it's affecting people who live in Ontario and who live in Canada.
So you've been around the room a bit. You met some of the people.
Met a couple people.
What do you see as kind of the future of our collaborative podcast with young folks
I think
in
it
Canada?
could be really interesting to broaden beyond the headlines and to bring it more onto dealing with global topics rather than just Canada-centric policy.
Yeah.
And I think it's just interesting bringing a different perspective because we have our radio show, we have the weekly, and I think just bringing something that's more international is a cool dynamic to add to it. What do you think of it?
Yeah, I think one thing about our program is we maybe don't look internationally that much. We're kind of, I guess, training to go into that Canadian route. But I think it's important. We want to break down boundaries, and the best way to do so is by not just looking internally sometimes and looking at what's going on around the world.
Well, there's a lot of issues too that get dealt with on the national, on a global scale, and then they get broken down into different countries, and you have to see really how they apply to each country and what they do with a certain issue and tackling it, while also being a part of global treaties and going from there.
Yeah,
I think that'd be really cool.
Yeah.
Cool stuff.
Yeah,
cool stuff. Sounds great.
Sweet. For our zero viewers, I hope you enjoyed that little talk.
I think it was great. I think everyone was really engaged.
Yeah. If you are looking for more content,
go check out the weekly Beyond the Headlines, CUIT 89.5, and go check it out on Apple Music. We're currently coming to Spotify eventually. We're not there yet, but we're getting there.
Maybe YouTube.
Yep.
Which you're watching on, I guess.
Yeah. Check out our Instagram at Beyond the Headlines. Our Twitter account, Facebook page,
all the social medias.
All the social medias. In charge of some of that. So yeah.
What's an issue going forward that you want to talk about on Beyond the Headlines? What's something you're looking forward to engaging with?
Well, I'm doing a show in January on urban. I told you urban climate change and resiliency, like more city based, and seeing what big cities like Toronto, possibly places in Florida, like New York, like big cities that are all coastal cities that are going to be affected by rising levels in water, just climate change issues, and having to deal with that dynamic. Because a lot of places could possibly go underwater. Right. So, and I think really kind of drew me to that topic was being in Toronto this summer, and I was downtown during one of the floods and trying to figure out how to get out from being downtown.
Yeah.
So it's cool to think about that and see what the future of cities and what they're going to do will go for. Looking forward.
Yeah, it's a huge issue.
What are you working on now?
So outside of the weekly, I'm working on a show on data privacy. It's going to be coming out either late December or late January. And we're going to be looking at data privacy across a couple areas. One thing we're going to be probably looking at is new cities, new technological cities. So things like waterfront Toronto and different tech cities around the world, and the kind of implications of data collection there. And then we're probably going to be looking at the issue of social media privacy. So we've heard about the Facebook hacks and Cambridge Analytica and different implications of elections with social media information. So
really interesting too.
Obviously, kind of a newer issue on the policy.
Even like
realm.
thinking of the way like what technology is doing to public policy, like even AI issues and stuff like that, like ethics issues around AI and stuff like that too, are really interesting to think about. There's a whole new dynamic that no one's ever had to deal with before. So we should probably do a weekly on that.
Yeah.
I think that'd be a cool topic just to like discuss, you know?
Yeah. So it's interesting, like the digital governance of.
I think it's really cool.
Of what, you know?
Yeah, like what are you governing?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that we should definitely like look into that too. That'd be cool. Actually, even a regular radio show topic as well. It could even be an episode with YVC and figure out internationally what people are doing, how people are developing.
All right, guys. Well, we're gonna go back and meet some more people.
Yeah, talk to you guys later.
Hope you're enjoying the view. Yeah.
All viewers.